So you've gone through the process, you've bought your property, you've got the keys, you're moving in, it's your first day. What should you be thinking of? Hi, my name's Manda Walker and I'm the mortgage coach. I posed this question to a lot of people today while I was out on a picnic, funny enough, and a lot of them had different opinions of when they bought their first property, what were the two things. As if you've watched one of my other videos, my two things were toilet roll and curtains, because you start unpacking and before you realise it's nightfall and everybody can see all of your unpacking because you have no curtains. There aren't a lot of people that when you're buying their property they will leave curtains or net curtains or even full curtains, so make sure you've got curtains and curtain rods and things like that to make sure you can keep the curtains up so no one can see into your place. I mean, no one wants to be burgled within the first day of moving in, right? The other thing is, make sure, I mean, especially in this climate, that you have hand sanitizer or you have soap, you have hand towels, and all important to me, toilet roll. That's really important. Now, I was speaking to someone else and they said the two most important things for them was a door number and a bin. And I was like, a door number and a bin? Didn't you get those? And her first property was a new build. And with the new build, it didn't have any door numbers on, which I thought was quite unusual. But until you've moved into a new build, you wouldn't know. And maybe she was the exception to the rule. As I said, I've never bought a new build myself. So anyone out there who has bought a new build, did you get a door number? And bins, I automatically got the latest wheelie bins. You know, you've got the one for the general rubbish, you've got the one for the recycling, and then you've got one for the food waste. And if you've never bought before, you really need to go onto the council website. And one, hopefully you should have the bin so it's fine, and sometimes there's a label on top, or they put a leaflet through the door around March time to tell you what days the bins come out and how often and what you can put in all the bins. So it's a useful tip to either ask your neighbours, and it's a good way to break the ice, or you can go on the website of the council that you're in and the information will be there. What I know someone else has done is they just looked out each evening, and the evening they saw that people put in bins out, they just copied them, and depending whether they put their recycling bin out or their general waste bin out, then they'd know what to do. But generally speaking, what happened where I am is they do it alternately. So one week it will be recycling, then the other week it will be general waste. But when it comes to the food waste, which is the smaller, tiny, bin, they will put that out every single week, so that doesn't change. So that's just a tip that I thought was quite interesting. And I asked my mum, and my mum said kettle. Make sure you pack a kettle and make sure it's at the top, because a lot of people do like their tea. We're a tea drinking nation, aren't we? And after you've done all that heavy lifting of moving in, you definitely need that. I remember once someone, and I just thought this was hilarious, but they actually taped up the scissors. So they put the scissors in the box, did the tape over it, and then they couldn't actually get into the box to get the scissors. So maybe put your scissors in a separate bag to, and not in a box, because you need to sort of access that. I remember when I bought my first property, I'd just finished working part-time at a supermarket, and they would have the box open cutters, so I was able to borrow one of those and use that, but they're in like pound shops and stuff like that, so that's quite good. But it'd be really interesting to know what you think are the most important things. I asked somebody else and they said bin liners, which is also quite useful because you want to, there might be a lot of rubbish afterwards, so that's quite useful to know. But generally speaking, I would love to know what you guys did when you first bought your first property. What did you look for? I mean, I know somebody else, they couldn't actually afford furniture initially. At the end of the day, you probably use all your pennies just to buy the property, let alone having a bed and things like that. So they made sure that they had sleeping bags. That was important to them. And sometimes if you're not sure how the heater or boiler and all that stuff works, you might want to bring yourself a little heater. So temporarily, you know, when you arrive, and if it's quite late at night, or if you've been unpacking all day and it's quite late and you haven't had a chance to set the boiler and things like that, then that's something you could use temporarily, depending obviously on the time of year. But for me, as I said, it really was curtains, because I didn't want people looking in, and toilet roll for obvious reasons. But I would love, love, love to know what were your two things. Everybody has different things, and it's just interesting to know. I mean, there are the bare essentials of things to do when you first move in, and what I would say is take your meter readings. So if you've got a smart meter, that's great, but I would still take the meter readings. And the best way to do it, because I've had, especially with my rental property, when tenants move out, I always take photos of the meter readings, because the tenants will ring in their readings, but they might not be the readings of the day they move out. Not accusing anyone of anything, sometimes you just do it early so you don't forget later. But by them taking it early, and then I end up having to pay for some of their electricity or gas or whatever. But if you do it the day that you get the keys back from them, you can actually have it date stamped, and then that way you know what the meter readings are. And then, for instance, if you're buying your first home, moving into your first home, I would take those meter readings so everybody knows this is the day that you moved in and that's what the meter readings are. So that's one thing. The other thing I would suggest, I mean, for me being a landlord, whenever I swap tenants, I always change the locks. That might be something when you move into your new property that you'd want to do as well. Change the locks, because even though they've given you a set of keys, it would be quite nice and security conscious. I mean, you never know if the old tenants have kept the keys, or kept a set of keys, or the estate agent kept a set of keys, or they accidentally got thrown away and someone else has gotten hold of them. You don't know what you don't know. So what I would recommend is change the locks, and not only change the locks, but also look at getting locks for the windows and things like that. If you have an alarm, make sure you reset the alarm to a different alarm code, and make sure that everything's just brand new. That's something that I would do. The other thing I've done is if I've decided that I'm going to keep their carpets, for instance, some people were saying when they moved in, their furniture was left behind, which they were able to purchase. With me, I just get a company to come in and do a deep clean. And when it comes to opening all the cupboards and getting everything thoroughly cleaned, I normally just generally get a cleaning team to come in and just clean everything from top to bottom, and get that done before I move all the boxes in. Unless it's certain rooms that wouldn't need it. So for instance, the bedrooms, they might want their carpets cleaned, but it's not like you have to clean all the cupboards, unless there's fitted wardrobes, of course. But if you find a room that hasn't got carpet, that hasn't got doesn't need a deep clean, then you can put all your boxes in there. But what I would say is, step one for me is changing the locks. Step two for me is it's not so important about the window locks, because the windows are internal, the locks of the windows are internal. So if they did have a key to the window, they'd have to get into the house to use the key to unlock. Do you get what I mean? So it should be fine. Always, in my opinion, get your kitchen and your bathrooms deep cleaned. There are companies that will do that. If you do inherit or they leave behind furniture that you want to use temporarily, you can, for a very cost-effective price, get all the furniture cleaned up as well. So that's just something to be aware. I always introduce myself to the neighbours and say that I've moved in, and is there anything I might need to be aware of? And at the end of the day, it's certain things like like we said with the council, when the bins are taken out, even if there's a person that comes along and takes away general large rubbish, sometimes you might want to put a fridge or a freezer or something outside that still works, and people like to take it away, and secondhand goods and that kind of thing, then that also is quite important. Our council has just moved on to you need your driving licence to go to the local recycling centre to take, you know, white goods, to take garden waste if you don't have a garden waste to your house service, that kind of thing. So it really is useful to have a word with the neighbours, introduce yourself. It's always nice to introduce yourself to the neighbours and just ask about these kind of things. It's a good icebreaker. So yeah, those are some tips on when you first move into your first property. So if you can think of any, please, one, subscribe if you want to hear more on this channel. Do the notification so you can see when I'm doing new videos. And yeah, please pop in the comments what were the first couple of things you wish someone had told you when you'd moved in, or something that you do on a regular basis when, you know, whenever you move into a new property. What do you do, or what do you do when your tenants, you know, if you're renting, your tenants move, and then that kind of thing. So yeah, it'd be great to hear from you. Take care. Bye bye.